May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. What do those mean? I tend to pause after each line, and I don't warn you in advance, so it's really annoying. But so remind me what they mean. Wishing happiness and the causes of happiness. It's a lesson in jargon. Nobody knows.
Well, we're all equal.
Love.
No.
Treat everyone equal.
Well, yeah, that's there, but that's not what that means.
The first one is maybe perfect happiness is free from any negativity.
Yes.
Enlightenment, happiness would be have enlightenment, free from suffering would be from your karmic causes.
So these are definitions, actually. So the first one is a definition of love. It's without, in Buddhism, this is just jargon. You know, it is the path to enlightenment, is to have love without any kind of attachment or, you know, other stuff with it, you know. The second one is the definition of compassion. And these are actually, you know, the definitions of great love, great compassion, because it includes all beings, you know, so. And may all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. It's like immeasurable joy, but and it's getting at that kind of enlightenment where it's irreversible, where you know, you have nothing, you know, there's no possible way to have suffering with it. Because we have a tendency to believe in our culture that they go together, right? That happiness, you know, that in order to have happiness, you have to suffer, you know, in order to, you know, that they are, because we live dualistically, it's like you can't have just one, you know, and in samsara, that's true. But in enlightenment, that's not true. And then to get at what Marianne said, the last one, may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. That this is the mind that our practice starts with. This is how we can do the other, you know, develop the other immeasurable minds. Why would we wish this for others?
World peace.
We want everybody to achieve the others. They need this too. Yeah.
Radical, no self.
Yeah. And the radical interdependence, that we are really interdependent and our happiness depends on everyone's happiness, you know, and for everybody to be able to develop universal love and compassion and joy is through this mind of equanimity. Yeah. What is bodhicitta? It's the mind that wishes to attain enlightenment for oneself in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, before we go further, because we will, of course.
So if everything starts with equanimity,
Why does it last?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not when you're doing practices. Like if you notice in Medicine Buddha, it's the first one. You know, when you're doing practice, you start with equanimity. I don't know why it's last. Maybe in Tibetan it sounds prettier. I have no idea. Maybe it rhymes. Yeah. You know, I really don't know why. But I just know that that's how it's set up. Maybe it's to remind you at the end that don't forget, in order to do those others, you need to have equanimity. But when you're practicing it, you think about equanimity first. That's where it all starts, is with equanimity. That we need to have a mind that's not making, discrimination, saying, well, I'll wish this for the people I like, or I'll wish this for good people. Not everybody. We need to remove that attitude. That's something we want to abandon.
So that would be like the wisdom verse.
Well, the wisdom. Oh,
Sorry.
well, equanimity is a type of wisdom, you could say. It is not the wisdom that knows reality as it is, but it's part of how we get there. Okay. Before I just skip the refuge prayer, we're gonna, I'm fully capable of that. And I've already said it a few times today. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Wanted to talk about something that I really don't mention very often, and it's an error on my part, and that is, basically when we talk about samsara with cyclic existence, what that means is being, uncontrollably bound to this cycle of death and rebirth. Uncontrollably, we uncontrollably take rebirth. What does that suggest?
It's just happening to you. You have no control over your progress.
You have no control over your rebirth. And it's due to karma and afflictions. That's how it's described. We have no control due to karma and afflictions, due to our past actions and due to our, the disturbing emotions or the negative minds that arise, that, push our actions. So what is that suggesting?
We're all just prisoners here.
Well, we need to take control.
Habituation.
Yeah, we're habituated to it. See, what we need to understand, because often when we start to be aware of what's going on in our mind stream, when we start to really look, we can be kind of shocked at what we found. It's like, oh, had no idea that I was so self-centered. Oh, I had no idea that I could think such mean thoughts all the time. Oh, I didn't know I was so judgmental. We can notice that, we just have all these, petty little habits. And hopefully we'll also notice, oh, but I can also be kind. I can be patient. I'm, compassionate, da, 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 da. But many of us don't go there. We just stick with noticing our negative habits. What Buddhism suggests is that those habits reflect that we are conditioned. Everything that is produced by causes and conditions. They say samsara has the nature of all-pervasive conditioning. That what arises is due to conditioning. That's just habit. But it means habit so pronounced, I guess you could say, that it's just automatic, isn't it? That so much of what arises in our minds, it's just there. It's not like we're going, logically, oh, well, this guy acted like this, so I don't think I'll like him. That's not what happens. We just, ugh, just react with dislike. You know, this is due to our conditioning, life after life after life, and it all arises from our confusion about how we exist. You know, we really believe that others are either sources of happinesses or sources of suffering. That things, you know, things are being done to us, you know, and that if we could control everything outside of us, you know, we'd be fine. We don't have to control ourselves. We just need to control everything outside of us. But this is that, you know, so we often refer to Buddha's enlightened activity as spontaneous and effortless. It is not the same as habituation that we're talking about with our karma and afflictions, our compulsion to act due to our conditioning, okay? An enlightened mind's no longer being conditioned. It's free from that kind of conditioning, but it's free of samsara. It's free from being bound in this cycle of causes and conditions. So this is an important detail. So when we say that people are out of control due to their karma inflictions, it's important to remember that. You know, so when you're going along, you think you've made progress and da-da-da, and then all of a sudden some rage mind comes up, you know, and you find yourself, ooh, I'm enraged. It's important to understand that that's our conditioning. That's, you know, if you have rage in your system, it's going to come up from time to time, and how hard it is to abandon it, as opposed to responding to it with judgment. The same is true with others. You know, we really don't need to waste a moment of mind asking ourselves, why does someone act that way? They act that way because of ignorance. And their reactions have been conditioned through that ignorance, that misunderstanding of how we exist. When you act that way, same is true. You know, so we really need to be gentle with our response to noticing our habits, you know, because we're out of control. We're trying to take control. That's why we're learning about tools that we can use to take control and find ways to create pauses in that conditioned response so that we can choose a different response and then habituate ourselves to that. But that is very effortful, and it takes a lot of practice. You know? And our old habits will rear their ugly heads for a long time, you know, and that shouldn't make us feel like I'm never going to get there. That's not true. The only way to get there is to notice them, find tools to interrupt them, implement those tools, which is going to be trial and error. You're going to have some successes, and then you're going to hit some rough patch and have, you know, and you just can't believe it. You think, really, I haven't succeeded at all with my mind. And that's not true. It's just that certain conditions are harder for us to not just go into automatic mode. What kind of conditions can you imagine would be like that?
When somebody is inconsiderate.
So that may be, that's one of yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Judging people. That's mine.
Again, I related very easy.
What do you think the mind of anger or impatience or whatever feeling, what do you think those kinds of minds are signifying about what's underneath it?
Ego.
Everything they go base, just get over it. Yeah. What is a mind of being judgmental, taking offense at someone being, inconsiderate, getting irritable,
Self-cherish.
self-cherishing? What are you cherishing? What's there? Does anybody, can you imagine that a little bit of fear is there? They don't respect me.
Yeah, it's low self-esteem. I would say rather than the cherishing.
Well, self-cherishing is just, low self-esteem is a form of self-cherishing. It's where you're the center of the universe and it's bad. So, but we need to understand that when our fear, like something about us is in danger, whether it's a little way, like we have good conditions. So things like someone being inconsiderate to us, are like, but we can have that fear of, what do they think of me that they, they obviously don't think of me. That's where the self-cherishing bit comes in, but there's a certain element of, I'm going to lose something I need. And we want to be aware of that when fear is present, or the fear of, it's 8 worldly concerns, the fear of loss, the fear of disrepute, the, bad reputation, the fear of criticism, the fear of, what's the other one? I can never do this list completely.
Abandonment.
Loss, pain. Thank you. When those arise, so like, can you imagine being in a war zone? How well your tools will, for working with your mind, will work in a war zone. Because then we really are very aware of how vulnerable this body is, how vulnerable our lives are to impermanence and change and catastrophe and blah, 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 blah. Same thing when the aftermath of a hurricane, or the aftermath of a flood, that all those, can you imagine being caught in that tsunami way back when in Sumatra, Indonesia, like your mind's not going to be going, how did I create the cause for this? I mean, and there's no way you're going to be able to do that anyway, because it's not going to be from this life. But so the point is that we need to understand that when we have this ignorance about how we exist, because that's what it is, this fear of ceasing to exist, like in a war zone. The Buddha would say, actually, you'll never cease to exist, but this story that's going on is going to cease. This body will die and this story will cease, but you really don't have to fear total cessation, because the mind never ceases. In other words, you'll have more time. So, but can you think about that in a war zone?
One way to find out.
Yeah. Now, there's more than one way to find out, because we've all been there. This is the interesting part about beginningless time, is we haven't missed any condition. We've had time to experience them all. We've done all the actions that create the cause for all those results. Why? Because we're stuck in samsara and we don't have control over our reactions. We're completely confused about how we exist, And due to that, we've created a whole treasure trove of habits in response to all these conditions. You know? So this is not an easy task, but it's a doable task. So there's a, you know, it's something that, but it takes time. And worrying about this idea of deserving or not deserving or guilt or that, it doesn't make any sense when you're talking about karma, when you're talking about cause and effect. Because no one is choosing to do these actions so that they can suffer in the future. That's not what's going on. It comes from confusion, you know. So when you're stuck in a war zone and you choose to kill rather than be killed, you're creating the cause to be killed again in the future. I mean, that's what that does. It's cause and effect. Around and around we go. But you're not doing it out of wisdom. You're doing it out of this ignorance. This is why when there's an outbreak of war, you don't have all these people who just say, we just got to go in there and tell them to stop. And I mean, literally, I remember visualizing one time, forgotten which war it was, something going on in Europe, you know. I don't know, I can't remember now. But just imagining, what if everybody in all the neighboring countries just walked into that country and said, you'll have to kill us all if you're gonna, you know, blah, 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 you know. We're not gonna bring our weapons in. We're just gonna let you know that none of us think this is an acceptable way to act.
John Lennon did, imagine all the people.
Yeah, I can imagine it too.
Gandhi did it.
Gandhi did it. Other people have been known to do it. But, and, you know, and Gandhi was murdered. You know, having a right mind does not mean that you don't get killed for it. And so most of us opt out. Thank you. I admire you and I appreciate you, but no, I'm not doing that myself. So, but that still is coming from the self-grasping that thinks that, oh, you know, my life is too precious to risk for the sake of a point, you know, because we grasp at this life as being permanent, our only life, our only chance, our da 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 da. And then if we losing this body is the catastrophe of all time for ourselves, you know. And this compulsion to guard this self comes from being habituated to confusion, to misunderstanding how we exist. Because things appear to us to exist a way that they actually don't. You know, when you think about the fact that we hold things to be permanent that are clearly not permanent, you know, like when something breaks and you kind of go, huh, that happened, you know, like as if it's not going to break ever, you know, is because we don't have the tools with our eyesight to tell that everything's changing constantly. You know, it appears to us as solid, unmoving, you know, unchanging from moment to moment. We accept that obviously it changes over time, but we don't really hold it that way. It doesn't look that way.
Why is it so difficult?
Because we're habituated to it.
Why?
Because we're born with faculties that can't show us these things directly. You can't see that everything around you, including your own body, is moving. And we hold on to this solid sense of self. And we hold on to I hold on to your solid sense of self. It's like when we keep expecting someone to show up somewhere, but they've moved, they've moved out of town or whatever, and we're just always surprised that they're not there. But that's that persistence in believing things stay. And of course we grasp at things that stay that we like. So we miss someone who's moved that we liked and is no longer around at these places we expect them to be. We don't do that for everyone, do we? Because we don't have equanimity. We're just, it doesn't even occur to us. They say that just even considering the possibility of things being empty of inherent existence sort of shatters this whole habit, because it's what gives us a little crack to be able to start looking if it's true that things exist the way they appear to us. So our habits, so let's look at it. So our habits compel us to respond in a certain way, okay? And that builds up over time. And then when we do the action again, the Buddha taught that there's a aftermath on, and an imprint, a thing that's placed on our mental continuum. It's not a thing, but it's a tendency. It means we've created a tendency or a potential to do that again. We get similar conditions, we do it again. That makes sense? Okay. It takes a whole bunch of these potentials to come together for our conditions to ripen, for things to act again, So this is what we say that, like a good example is, all right, I was hit by a car one time when I was standing in a parking lot. And so, it's my karma that I got hit by a car, okay? But we need to know what that really means. So it's not my karma that there was this car and this driver there that
See you.
that
We don't know.
no, I know he could see me. He was like, he was just staring at me like, oh my God. He said he hit 6 cars before he hit me. He was going in a circle. And he never took his foot off the accelerator. It was like he was frozen, And so finally it dawned on me that like, he's still going. And he's still going in a circle. I guess he's in that circle. I am. Well, I didn't get out fast enough. Anyway, it was my karma ripening to be hit by a car. That's sort of like the karmic aftermath of some action I did in the past. But the fact that the car is there, all that stuff, that's the other person. The person driving the car, it's his karmic aftermath that has a car, that he's ended up in this situation and that he doesn't know what to do. So they're separate karmic paths going on here. Now, my karma didn't create that car in that moment, that was that person's conditions. But in order for me to be hit by that car, I also had to create a cause for that.
What about all those people who go down planes?
Yep, same thing. Same thing.
It's a collective karma.
It's a collection of individual karmas. And the way you know that is sometimes everybody dies in the plane except one person. Because that person didn't create the cause to die in a plane crash, at least for that life.
get hit by that car.
Mhm.
You're exhausted.
That karmic seed that's ripened, yeah.
Is he exhausting a karmic seed or creating? a karmic
He's
seed?
creating.
He's creating a karmic seed. You're exhausted.
Now, we're all exhausting and creating in every moment. Why? Because our conditions are also changing. So they just are gonna, that was easy for me to say, just disintegrate in every moment. So that means the condition of the car, that was his condition, but it also disintegrates moment to moment. It also got totaled. So he exhausted that karma.
So,
You totaled the
so
car.
he's exhausting and creating at the
No,
same
the 6 cars he hit before me, I'd put a dent in my car, a head, perfect shape head. Bam.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I hit it. It was a
You were
perfect.
in the car. I thought you were standing.
I was.
In the.
I was
in the
standing
car
there.
park.
I think what he did was hit my car and the trunk lid hit my
Yeah.
head.
Chain reaction.
So he's creating and exhausting at the same time.
All of us are.
In that
by
part-
our-
in that
all of
particular
us.
instance.
No.
So when you're,
So I didn't just
Looking at
exhaust a
that.
seed,
you exhaust the seed, what seed were you creating then? by
my
doing it?
response to whatever was happening.
Probably weren't happy.
Well,
But every moment of mine creates
both sides.
tendency. Everything is a cause and effect. You can't have causes without effects. Nothing's an effect if there wasn't a cause. They go together. They are mutually dependent. Yeah. Now, it's ludicrous for me to say that somehow that person who was driving the car was aiming for me. You know, whatever his, whatever was going on, he was frozen and just couldn't make that transition in his mind to move his foot off the accelerator and put it on the brake.
You know what he was, I was in a similar situation, only I was in the car, hitting somebody in front of me.
So the point is, you're out of control. And all sorts of factors have to be there, like whatever reason, inexperience, whatever, who knows? Or the fact you just hit 3 cars and you're still in shock about that, who knows? But the point is, this idea of, did I deserve getting hit by a car? Yeah, you could say that in the sense of cause and effect. I created the cause, this was the effect. But deserve is just not even the right word. It's merely that I experienced the effect of a previous cause.
Seems to accept the fact that something just is.
Well, something just is. And it's because we are talking about a series of activities. But it is just cause and effect, just like gravity. Gravity just is. Doesn't mean there aren't things that make gravity work, but it just is. It's just a fact we have to live with.
These are problems. And in your life, I'm sure you've received random acts of kindness.
They're not random. This is my point.
Tendron, I
Yes.
think Elaine has a question.
Thank you.
I think that you answered it, though. I was gonna say, aren't there things that just happen? Or you just happen to be the lucky one who's there?
No, it's not really like that. That's what makes it hard. We don't experience anything that we didn't create the cause for. The shape of how it is in any given moment, you could call random, but it's really just that we can't see all the parts, all the causes and conditions that were coming together for that to happen. Just like we can't see all the causes and conditions that called this group of people to be here in this moment. We just don't know. We can't possibly see it because it's not just, we didn't create the cause in just this life, we create it in many lives.
So it's multiple actions coming together in one beautiful moment.
Where you get hit. Yeah.
Sometimes,
But that's, you see, this is our habit. Some beautiful moment, some negative moment. We think there's something orchestrating that.
if you get hit by a car or you're in a plane crash or you're attacked, it's a negative moment.
It depends. You know what happened in that for me? What was the result of that car accident? One, I was too dizzy to sit on a chair, so I started sitting on a cushion. I'm so grateful for that. I became a nun. It's very handy to be able to sit on a cushion. When did I become a nun? About quite a year after this. Somehow I suspect that was related. What did when I came to in the hospital, because I was knocked unconscious, I was saying the refuge prayer. And that was a teaching all by itself. So it really does depend. I can't say that was a negative event in my life.
Just to confirm what you're saying. So for example, when a kid, year and a half old, sick with cancer.
Yeah.
It's karma from other life.
Yeah, it's coming from other life. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Does that make that an innocent baby? Yeah, it's still an innocent baby suffering. You know, it's just that we have no idea when we do actions what the result's going to be. We can't imagine it. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was interesting when you were talking about Gandhi, because when he sort of had the vision, he knew what he was doing, he knew why he was doing it, he accepted his potential karma. And when he was dying, you know what he was saying? Did you read it? Ram, 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 Ram. He was already going to his spiritual wisdom, his belief.
And where does that come from?
Yet he was more of an practice.
It's practice.
It's practice.
It's not
But that's-
magic. It's
I'm
habit.
But I'm just saying he accepted his spiritual people.
Well, that's my
accept-
point.
I know.
That's exactly my point. So that's why it depends. This obsession we have with labeling things as positive and negative is our grasping. And things don't exist that way. You know? So people, you know, when I tell them this story, it was so great because, and I got the police report, you know, the little thing that showed the diagram, you know, this guy went in a perfect circle. He went out of the parking lot, realized he was about to hit an oncoming car, missed it, but he ended up back into the parking lot by going over the sidewalk, the curb, the sidewalk, and the little things that stop your car in the parking lot, you know, hit a car, hit another car, hit another car, hit another car. And at this point, I'm running away. Not fast enough. And then I think he hit another car. You know, it was a perfect circle. You know, as much as driving a car and hitting cars can be a perfect circle.
Just like Samsara.
Yeah, just like samsara. It was just like karma in a picture. So, you know, it's this, it just is. A bunch of events that, you know, I participated in had this result. Now, there's no way at the time of me creating those events, doing those things that place those seeds, that I knew that someday I would get hit by a car because of it. And there's also no way of being certain that if I thought that was the case, I still wouldn't do those things. Because we all do things that we know aren't good for us. And we do it anyway. So, you know, because we think there's something about external objects that we can hold on to make us happy or protect us or, you know, all that stuff. It's sort of like we do all this stuff to take care of our bodies throughout our lives, you know, which is smart, you know, nothing wrong with that. But if you keep grasping after that, you might have trouble with the fact that you're still going to die. Doesn't matter how well you take care of your body, you're still going to die because your body's impermanent. It can't last forever. You know. So it's important to recognize that, yes, we can take care of our bodies and that it's useful to do so. It will not prevent death. And since we don't know when we're going to die, that's considered the uncertainty of a human rebirth because our lifespans are not specific. No. That we can suffer at the time of death because we're not ready for it. Because we think it's going to be at least later. You know, not today. But, you know, everybody in the world thinks not today. And how many people, you know, what is it? I don't know. It's like 720 people in the US will die today. You know, or this hour or something. So. So the proper response to any negative experience is compassion. You know, it's just, it's not whether, because we don't show ourselves compassion sometimes, you know, something will be, oh, I deserve that. You know, that's our response. Instead of allowing ourselves to sit with the fact that, wow, this hurts, you know, and just be, you know, that's okay. Doesn't mean you have to kill someone because I'm hurting.
Or just say, I created that.
Yeah,
instead
that's what
of
I do.
saying,
Yeah. Now, of course, children can't, you know, that's not what you do with children, you know, and we can comfort ourselves by knowing that, but I'm learning how to change my habits. You know. But every situation is empty of inherent existence. We can respond to it as, you know, it's just what is, acceptance of what is, and not let it dictate how we respond. Not let external circumstances dictate how we respond, but that you have to develop tools for that. And one of those tools is things like self-compassion, because it's not easy. And we're suffering in the meantime. Sometimes I think about my mom, who's an alcoholic, and she really suffered at the end of her life. She, you know, you could tell, you know, she would say things like, oh, I must have been drunk when that happened, or blah, blah, blah. And she clearly had regrets about having wasted her life, so much of her life in that state. And it just, when I think about it now, it's just painful to know, you know, that that's what she experienced at the end, you know, because it's terrible. You know, we all, even our regret, you know, our regrets, you know, we suffer unless we do something about it. You know, we can't change our past, but we can say, well, I'm going to use this information, you know, that I don't like having done this. I don't, you know, as to, you know, resolve to try not to do it in the future. Then we're turning it into something called the path. You know, so it's just, but this is the truth of suffering and samsara. We don't know what we're doing, and we compulsively repeat our habits. Some are good habits. You know, I mean, people, you know, we all see people who are just really good with children. You know, children, you know, they get all caught up and someone else is just so good at being able to, you know, connect in that way that reassures them, or, you know, whatever is needed in that moment. You know, that's a good habit. Like people who just naturally, I knew a bunch of nuns in Australia because it was useful in Australia, who would pull over the side of the road, and whatever was in the middle of the road, they'd move it out of the way. Whether it was a snapping turtle or this, you know, whatever it was, they made sure it got out of the road, I'm just too afraid of all the stuff that was in the road to do that, and that's just my habit, of grasping at the self, that it's not worth endangering myself. And I wasn't worried about really the traffic, although sometimes that was the case, but it was mostly that I was scared of whatever was in the road. So totally self-interest. So this is, this is the thing. So we have to know. So how do you work with that? When you see yourself totally lacking in, you have the compassion, but not the political will, so to speak, to do something about it.
You just do it anyways, if you can.
Oh, I didn't. So what do you do next?
Not to pull down, be upset.
Give
With
some
yourself.
self-compassion.
Yeah.
You have self-compassion. What else can you do? You would, yeah, and do purification. You can regret it and purify it and try to do better.
How do you purify it?
You purify it by, really letting yourself feel the regret for the fact that you weren't willing to protect the life of this other thing, okay? And that you regret not having done it, And then you make a resolve, a strong mental resolve that says the next time I see that, I'm going to try to be able to help it.
In other words, if I'm always aggravated at people.
Yep.
Just as an example.
Yep.
When I purify it, feeling the regret, just
Yeah, so that night,
soak it.
no, you allow it to be genuine. You allow it to arise and go, I know what it's like when people are irritated with me, and I don't like the way it feels at all. And so you allow yourself to really feel the harm you've done to someone else by that response, and you generate the wish to stop doing that, to take it seriously the way we harm each other, because we harm each other with our words, with our rolling of the eyes, with our, all sorts of ways, so then and then we try, we go, okay, the next time I see them, I think I'll apologize, or not. I mean, sometimes it's not appropriate. Or sometimes they go, yeah, apology is not enough. You've done that often enough. Sometimes we just say sorry, but we don't do anything to try to change it. We don't genuinely regret it, So we need to do that. And then we resolve. And then this is why you want to do this every day. Look at your actions that day and kind of go, not so good. Try to really feel that, because it makes it easier to not do it the next time. But it's not like you're going to get that. You almost never get it the first time. But at least you're building that habit of going, that's right, this is harm. And I really want to learn how to, to not do this kind of harm. And that's part of the process. Because we have a tendency to rationalize, well, if they hadn't acted like that, I wouldn't have done that in the first place, because it's their fault. We don't, we don't take responsibility for it. But we don't have to beat ourselves up. There's no point in that. That's just using the same kind of mind. Now I'm irritated with myself. That's not the point. But so it's so important to just remember that that we are out of control due to our karma and afflictions. That's how we're stuck in samsara. So we need to remember that it is a process to make these changes. And we can. The other thing you want to do after you do that in the end of the day is you rejoice of the stuff you did well. You really want to remember, oh, but I smiled at these people when I got on the bus, and I could see that it uplifted them. Or I, smiled at the person asking for money, panhandling on the corner. I didn't give them any money, but I smiled at them to say, I see you. I'm not just, I see the humanity in you. You know, we need to, you know, recognize our efforts to be kind or patient or generous. Because we do that a lot. So that's really good news. What we have a tendency to do with our strong habits that we repeat a lot is we identify with them. Which does what?
Reinforce.
Yep, reinforces them. What else does it do?
Does it risk becoming part of our character? Every shape of action becomes a habit. Habit becomes a habit.
Good, like everything's wrong with that sentence. Yes, exactly. That's the trouble with self-grasping. Is we think, oh, that's who I am. And so what does that do? Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy for one thing. It just reinforces this idea and also says, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
Well,
actually, that's what I was gonna say. I'm sorry to interject.
Yeah,
what I was
that's no
gonna
good.
say. It gives you a feeling of powerlessness over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as
Like you're
opposed to,
surrendering to it, like, oh, well.
but it's not really, I mean, even if it's not just an, oh, well, what if it becomes self-hate, you know, it's like, but it's this, it is a perfect example of self-grasping. It's superimposing upon this ever-changing series of mental and physical events and making it an angry one. I'm just that way. You're concrete. That's not a word. Okay, what's a word? Solidifying. Excellent choice. Your identity in the form of someone who is always angry or always selfish or always this or always that. And it's false. There's nothing can exist that way. You've made yourself inherently negative.
And positive, always kind, always generous.
Yeah, you can do that too. And if it's not true, what does it become? An arrogance. So we have to watch where we're taking it. And there's no point in solidifying it because it's not true. It's a lie. We don't exist like that. That's the very nature of our ignorance, thinking that in fact we do. That there's something that is me, that's identifiable as me, that's almost separate from this body. That's me. And that's what we protect. That's what we defend, against other, it's this, and it's doesn't exist. Yes.
Is that leaning towards narcissism?
Well, it can, but it's mostly because in that way, we're kind of all narcissists because we really believe we're the center of the universe, And in fact, so much so that we've created bodies that have stereoscopic vision and we think we're the center, we look like we're the center of the universe. I'm sorry, but I'm in the center of this room.
Yeah, it sounds very well. Self-discovery books the shelves are full with self-discovery books, self-discovery, discover yourself.
Yeah, we reinforce it in our whole society.
But what we should discover is the tools, how to work with that.
Well, and the fact that we're changeable. There's nothing fixed about us, except that we're changeable. The only thing that doesn't change is change itself or whatever. Everything changes constantly. And grasping onto any moment of ourselves or any one description of ourselves is false. It's just simply not true. But that's where all of our disturbing emotions arise from, is this confusion. Thinking that we exist in some sort of permanent way, that, and because of that, that I has to be protected. You know, that I can't control what I do. You know, it's true that we're out of control. It's not true that we can't get control.
But isn't that grasping?
What?
Trying to get control.
Trying to get control? I don't think so. It depends on whether you think that, you know, it's like when you think, I'm going to finally get it all right. And you grasp at that. But I did everything right today. And so the outcome should be this, you know, then you're grasping at your expectation. But it's that grasping at permanence, independent, as if we are independent of others. That's what independence of others is an independent self. Because that's all there is, self and other self.
Come back to it.
Yeah, well, it's always a dichotomy, isn't it? This is how we perceive things, is that it's a dichotomy. And this is where the ignorance, you know, it just, everything appears to us to be this way. And so trying to lose our grip on the way things appear to us is difficult. And it takes lots of reflection, lots of study, lots of thinking about, you know, because our habit is completely reinforced by how things appear to us. This is why it's helpful sometimes. Well, I think it's helpful. It's helpful for me at times to read things about physics. Discover that nothing's like this, you know, and that, you know, nothing is like I think it is. It's really interesting. And then when you even just start contemplating the fact that, you know, that people respond differently to what looks like the same conditions. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've, but you know, when your parents kind of look at you and go, oh, you shouldn't feel like that. Or if your parents and you've said that, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Oh, like that's helpful.
You mean people respond differently to hot weather?
Yes. I know some people like it. What is that about? It's insane. And some people don't like chocolate. What can I do? The world is nuts.
I would go with a universal constant.
There's some things that just are that way. You know, it's ridiculous. And we all can know it's ridiculous when we look. But we forget to notice that we actually act as if it's true all day long. You know, and we just seek, you know, these little momentary placebos all day long to minimize our suffering.
Like what?
Like coffee, like dessert, you know. Chocolate, please, you know. You know. And then, you know, and to the point where, you know, it's like I've said many times, you know, when I had to face the fact that M&Ms made me sick, I was devastated. And I kept testing the theory to like prove it not true. But it is true. I can't eat them anymore. And that just is terrible. I shouldn't be happy ever again. You know, and another addict exists. So it's just, you know, but it's ridiculous. But this is how we think, and we need to be aware that this is how we think, because we can undo that habit, you know. Sometimes we choose not to. But we want to really look at how our suffering is related to this habit of grasping that our happiness and suffering depends on others. That it's really, if I could change the world, I'd be fine. It's not true.
I'm experiencing this right now in a big way.
Okay.
I'm moving back to Europe and I'm letting go of things and I dedicate certain things to certain people and yet they don't want it and then I'm totally disappointed. And then I'm learning now to just not be attached to the thing. It doesn't matter where it goes then.
Yeah. I
And then I
totally
feel free.
relate.
Now I can go.
Yeah. And this is what we want to be able to do at death,
Mm.
Is to just recognize that it doesn't matter. That it's been fun, guys, but see you later, in some other form, in some other way, of really being able to appreciate how all the joyous things you've experienced in this life but not hold on, because it's gonna end. It has to end. There's just no way around it, So it's that, and it is freeing to be able to not grasp and hold tight, because that just causes us to suffer. The mind of grasping is a suffering state of mind, because we can't hold on to anything. And we can let that devastate us, or recognize that's just the way it is. It is like that. And it actually doesn't threaten our existence.
It's that need to control that creates the suffering.
I'm sorry,
The need to control.
the need to control.
Makes me suffer.
Well, the grasping at the idea of that being in control will lead to happiness is not true. That's what we're grasping after, is believing that there's something in it for us, and that isn't there. So it can't do anything but lead to dissatisfaction. And we often, one of the things that I think Westerners, or become from a culture that doesn't talk about rebirth at all, like this is it, this is your only chance, one and done, that this idea that we can't be annihilated is really, what do you mean? We can't be annihilated. Only thing that can be annihilated are these kind of wimpy little bodies, that get sick and get old, fall apart, can be harmed by everything. We can't hold on to that. And what else can't we hold on to? Our fabricated story about this life. When we wake up in the next body, we're not going to be surrounded by you guys, by each other. There'll be a new set of sentient beings we're interacting with. It depends. The more control you do have, the more you are freed from confusion. Your aspirational prayers of where to be born, but you won't have this story. You can't be whatever role you play in this life in the next life, because you'll be someone else. But we don't have to fear that. We don't have to fear ceasing.
Rebirth. Source of comfort in that respect.
Yeah,
There isn't in that.
but we don't even have to
I get a
have.
chance to do this again, maybe better.
Yeah. And not only that, when you become enlightened, you don't cease and you never have to do this again. Yeah, so it's not just like, it's not that the only way to not cease is to stay stuck in samsara. That's not the case. We can get out of samsara and still exist. It just won't be the storyline that we grasp after.
In between death and rebirth.
There's aging and
No, like you die. And
you're born in the bardo, the intermediate state, for 49 days at the most, looking for a new body.
so in about 50 days you're reborn.
Well, it can be in
That's fairly
50 minutes, but it can also, but at most it's 49 days.
fast.
You need something? 12:30. I will shut up soon.
Oh, Venerable Tendrin,
Yes, please.
when you get to when you're out of samsara, you've reached enlightenment, then what?
Then you spontaneously and effortlessly help those who are suffering.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. And you experience bliss. You no longer create any cause for suffering. So you're not conditioning, you're not doing anything. There are no karmic seeds to ripen. It's all bliss.
I'll sign up now.
Yes. Who would argue with this, It just means there's work to do. This is where I get stuck. Oh, really? So, but we all have this ability. Why? Because we're not fixed. We don't inherently exist. There's nothing to grasp onto. We can change every aspect of how we respond to conditions. Which is what creates the cause, blah, blah, blah. We can realize how things actually exist. We can develop our wisdom to its fullest potential. We can create the cause to meet teachings again and again until we internalize, till we have realizations. And we see people who show evidence of being sort of ahead of us. We all know people, in fact, in almost all of our habits, we know someone who, doesn't seem to have a problem with this or that, We all have our strengths, but it's, and then some people just seem to have mostly strengths. Well, that's just because they've been practicing longer. Or maybe not longer. They've been succeeding longer. Let's put it that way. So, I mean, it is really good news that we have nothing to grasp onto. It feels really scary that there's nothing to grasp onto, because we're afraid of not existing. But the reality is all our relationships are changing moment to moment. All of our, our health is changing moment to moment. It's all changing moment to moment. Like, I'm amazed that, I think my father's been dead now 8 years. And I can, it's like, oh yeah, it's really like a dream, isn't it? I mean, it's like, okay. I've lost several friends, it's just like, oh, okay. Well, it's all in flux. And our experience of that flux is what matters, how we respond to this flux. If we respond in helpful, positive ways, or if we respond with resistance all the time. I hate this. I hate this. And it's so funny because, the things that we hate, we want them to change right away. We love the impermanence of them. But we forget that they're impermanent.
Sometimes they don't seem so at the time.
Well, aging and death sucks, particularly the aging part. It's like, wow, that feels pretty permanent. It's the antithesis of permanent, but because it's not reversing, you know? It's like when you're young and you injure yourself, and if you have good conditions or whatever, you can actually get fully recovered. And then that stops. And there's nothing that's fully recovered. And it's like a shock. But no reason to be shocked. It is the way it is. And it's not important. Yes.
So would you say that feelings of like grief and sorrow are also self-cherishing?
Yeah, because it's about how much we're missing them, and we're holding on to our happiness somehow is having that relationship. But it's understandable. We do have loss. That's part of the truth of suffering. And it's because of things like impermanence and stuff. This is, it's the fact that, and what's interesting is they say most people who have like good relationships, good marriages or whatever, their grief is shorter than those who had terrible ones, because they accept, they rejoice in all the good stuff. The memories, I guess, don't, drive themselves crazy or say, all I have is loss of bad relationships. I don't know what it's like to have the loss of a good relationship. So, but it's just, it kind of makes sense that it's easier to let go of something that you enjoyed, that was overall a good experience, in terms of them not being here, because that's just suffering, But of course this is samsara, When you're a Buddha, you won't need that kind. When you're enlightened, everything is providing that kind of experience. You don't feel any loneliness. You're not separated from anything. You're not, it's not, we don't experience this kind of loss. And you'll know where that person is. Huh. No. All right, this is my last teaching for 4 months or so. 4. Yep, 4 months. At least 4 months. Any burning questions? Burning questions. I'm sorry, I forgot to put on the microphone because I'm self-cherishing.
As Buddhist practitioners, we do have attachments. Should we not have attachment to the Dharma?
You cannot exaggerate the good qualities of the Dharma, so you can't have attachment to it. Attachment is an exaggeration of the good qualities of something.
No, I love that definition with respect to the Dharma.
Yeah. You can't be attached to a Buddha because you can't exaggerate the good qualities of a Buddha. Attachment and aversion are exaggerated minds. They're wrong. They're exaggerating either the good qualities or the negative qualities of something. Yes.
Going to collaborate about karmic seeds.
Well, I could if I had a few months.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That said a lot right there.
Yeah. It is very complex.
Okay.
Karma's, in fact, karma is such a vast topic. Only a Buddha can fully understand karma, because you have to have no ignorance in order to see how all the pieces fit. So, but it's good to remember they're just tendencies on our mind stream. And we have both good ones and bad ones, or positive or negative. And basically the definition for that in Buddhism is negative things, tendencies go towards suffering. Positive ones go towards happiness. It's just what the Buddha observed about cause and effect. The causes of positive experiences are positive actions. And then he described what those were, like protecting life, protecting possessions, protecting relationships, ethics. Yeah.
You said when you were doing the prayers at the beginning that, you were talking about joy, and you said, we think we can't have joy without sorrow, and that's samsara dualism. So, those dualisms, are they related to self-grasping?
Yeah. They're a result of the ignorance that we have, of our confusion. We see everything in terms of dualistic things. So we see self and we think other, and we grasp at those two things. We don't just use self and other as labels to describe, this mind body here and other is that mind body over there. No, we think I have a definite fixed mind body over here and you are definitely other over there. If I had an electron microscope, I could see that our body, this what looks like empty space in between us isn't empty at all. It's this, and if I go like this, we could see that on some, there's certain machines that can detect those things, but we can't.
We share the very air we breathe.
Yeah. Well, and our elements are the same elements that have always been the elements. I can trace it back to the Big Bang, and His Holiness just says, and guess what? There was one before that. So, so there's just no, there's always been physicality. There's always been consciousness.
Joy and sorrow, love and hate.
Yeah, that's all coming out of our ignorance. That's why it always is, it depends, But it only, because it's samsara. I really, I can't tell you how many times I thought, I wish somebody would just write on the sky what to do. My teachers would point to a long rim text and going, they've already done that. So anyway, all right. But I think it's so important to remember that even though we're out of control with, when some state of mind arises that we just kind of go, I can't believe I still think that way. Relax. This is a process and we're still stuck in samsara. It's like the only response that's appropriate is compassion. When you suffer, have compassion. When others suffer, have compassion, 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 compassion. And then put into place the tools that you're learning. Try to use them because that's what's going to lead to a state that's not suffering. But anytime we practice the minds of anger or judgment, whether it's towards ourselves or others, we're just setting ourselves up to suffer. So it's really about gentleness. We want to be all those things to ourselves as well as others, kind and compassionate and generous, throw in some wisdom. So anyway. I'm always ready to leave the heat of Florida, but when it comes down to it, no, I grasp. Yeah, I'm gonna miss you guys. So anyway, all right. Thanks for participating.
Venerable, thank you for these teachings on Sunday and the Thursday night karma. They have been fantastic. Thank you so much. You've made so much clear and given us so much insight and wisdom. We're really grateful.
All right, enough. Thank you.
When are you coming back?
Maybe October, maybe September. I don't know.
I see. So you're going to India for something?
Nope, I'm just going to North Carolina to see my friends.
Oh yeah.
Hang out with some other nuns.
I see.
Get the cuisine from Geshe-la there.
So are you gonna be conducting a Zoom call from there or no?
No, I'm not working. Venerable Keldon will be here. And so there'll still be Zoom classes June, July, and August.
Okay.
Venerable Amy's here next week, starting Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
So that will be there. So definitely keep up with the calendar.
No, you really.
Yeah.
Good.
So Sunday Zoom class will be still available, even though you will not be here. Is that what it is?
Correct. Not every Sunday, But
Not
starting
every-
in June, it will be every Sunday.
Oh, starting June, it will be every, I see, I see.
So, but I don't know. I think something's happening in May. I just don't know what that is because I'm not.
Got it.
So
It'll be on the calendar.
it'll be on the calendar. So just keep up with the calendar.
Got
I
it.
am just an email away. You know, never hesitate to email me.
Yeah,
My
can you,
email is tendron108@yahoo.com. It's been the same email address for 20 something years.
wow,
So I'm just an email away. If you have something that's come up and you need some help with it and you think I can be of help, email me, you know, and we'll call. But Tendron, which is TENDRON 108@yahoo.com.
Thank you.
so can we just send, can I just send you a hi email just to
Yeah.
say hi? I'm
Yep.
gonna do right now.
That would be good.
Yeah,
Hi,
that would,
Don. Yep, that'd be good. All right. So, and I really mean that. I love talking about the Dharma. I'm always happy to talk about the Dharma. So, you know, I may not respond right away because I also don't like to have to be glued to my tech. But really, I'm, you know, and then we just set up a Zoom call or a phone call or blah.
And I believe we will have something scheduled every single Sunday. going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's correct. I just don't know what it is. So check the calendar because community is so important, you know, so because society's not so helpful.
Right.
Television's not so helpful. Anyway, bye guys.
I also want to say, Tendron, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sherry.
Valuable,
My-
invaluable are Sundays with you. And you will be dearly missed until we see you next time. So
Oh, great.
Vanessa, I'm up here. I'm in North Carolina too, so I understand you're wanting to
Okay,
be up.
there we go. That's right. It's a beautiful place. So,
Yeah.
so I just emailed you right now.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, so take good care, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, you know, the usual stuff. And let's say some prayers. I forgot about the prayer. God, I'm a terrible nun. I'm just terrible.
I think you want to say it's terrible things to do, not you are terrible, right? That's what I was thinking like a lot 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it was terrible things to do, not I'm terrible.
Okay, let's get there. So let's read some dedications.
Mhm.
And here we go. I'll share the screen. So rejoice in your good efforts. And even just the intention to try to work with your mind. That's a unbelievably positive thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm muting you. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then His Holiness's long life prayer on page 244, 46.
No,
One,
He's thinking of the Zopal.
okay. So first, for His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful, crazy Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then whatever that page is.
Yes.
Or never leave.
Okay.
Well, Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, of course, aren't, but we couldn't see, we don't have enough merit for them to be here, but they would have to keep coming back to help. And that's sort of what this prayer for the return, swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche is about, is creating the merit in order to have him return and teach us, so. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
I'm gonna make an offering, and anybody else that would like to also.
Bye, guys at home.
Ahead of me or-
Thank you, Venerable Tendrin.
Thank you.
Have fun in North Carolina.
A wonderful